Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, and we're back to have another conversation, this time about composting. Several states are introducing composting laws that could substantially reduce food waste and improve home collection services. For example, California's mandatory composting law, SB 1383, also known as the Short-Lived Climate Pollutant Reduction Strategy, took effect on January 1st, 2022, and it's also a model for a Washington state law moving quickly through its legislature. All businesses, apartment and condo buildings, as well as individual homeowners in California, are now required to compost their food waste. And the law also aims to reduce by 20% the current surplus of edible foods sent to landfills. It's a game-changing move and raises many questions for all of us about the compostability of everyday products purchased in our states. So we're joined today by Erin Levine, Resource Recovery Manager at World Centric, a Rohnert Park, California-based manufacturer of 100% compostable tableware and food packaging. Erin is a certified composting professional through the U.S. Composting Council and a certified compost programs manager through the Solid Waste Authority of North America. We've had World Centric on the show several times because of the company's socially driven mission. They contribute a minimum of 25% of their profits to grassroots community organizations and environmental projects each year. And they also pioneered the certified B Corporation movement in business. Today, we want to dig into composting. What can be composted, how composting collection can be improved, and the different types of composting we need to understand in order to send compostables to the right place for processing. You can find out more about World Centric at worldcentric.com. That's all one word, World Centric, no space, no dash, worldcentric.com. Welcome to the show, Erin. How are you today?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you, Mitch. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and it's good to have World Centric back on the show. Let's start off with just the simplest question. Why is composting a positive step for the environment in the world that we live in today?
Well, composting is really one of the most impactful actions we can take to help with the climate crisis. Composting your everyday kitchen scraps like your eggshells, your banana peels, coffee grounds, it's a really easy and cost-effective way for us to reduce methane emissions. Mm-hmm. And here's why. When organic materials enter a landfill, as they rot, they become mummified, and due to the anaerobic conditions, so they lack the oxygen, they off-gas methane. And methane is a greenhouse gas that's 21 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Unlike when organic materials go into a compost system, which does incorporate oxygen, it off-gases very little. And methane, as we know, is one of the big culprits that's causing issues in California, like drought, wildfires, rising sea levels. And finally, when finished compost goes into our local farms, it's a really exciting way we can capture carbon dioxide and lock it in the soil and improve soil health and retain moisture and really truly reduce our reliance on pesticides and herbicides.
So tell us about the history of SB 1383. This is a pretty aggressive approach to composting, considering how much we dance around real environmental issues all the time. It's surprising to see this kind of a big step forward. What are its goals for the next 5 years? What is California trying to accomplish in terms of making an overall change in the character of its compost waste stream?
Yeah, it is mighty aggressive, and 1383 was actually passed in 2016 and signed in place by then Governor Jerry Brown in an effort to reduce methane emissions. And landfills being the primary super emitter of that very potent greenhouse gas. So the goal overall is to reduce landfill organic materials like your yard trimmings, your food scraps, fiber by 75% in 2025. And additionally, you had stated in the intro, but to recover 20% of edible food. And that helps really address a lot of the food insecurity issues in California. And further, this bill actually calls for California communities to procure finished compost or mulch, and it could be gas or energy that's produced from organic waste and replace all of that material that they're using with synthetic fertilizer or with petroleum-based gas or energy sources.
So essentially, the state took a few years to get ready for the actual implementation of the law. What were they building out composting programs during that time in order to be ready for this step?
Jurisdictions have been in communication with their residents and businesses to inform them of the new mandatory collection in place for organics. So that includes education and outreach. That includes more carts and more actual collection vessels, potentially increased capacity at compost facility, and further, a lot more organizations that are trying to receive grants to get compost infrastructure, to build the infrastructure, to get permits to collect, to actually process the organic materials.
So let me ask this too. What happens to the edible food that's collected? You mentioned that that's an opportunity to address food insecurity. Is there a special bin for stuff that could be used by somebody else? How does that food get separated out?
And so the edible food recovery part are handled by various organizations and that are trying to facilitate. So for example, if a conference has leftover sandwiches or lunches that they would normally dispose of, there's organizations that exist that can help get that food where it needs to go. So it can go to local food banks or into various facilities.
Okay, so there are these third-party nonprofits, most likely, that are taking that material and have set up donation arrangements so that you wouldn't put it in a compost. You would call them instead.
Yes. So if it's considered still edible, it's a way to look at it like we know the mantra: reduce, reuse, recycle. So the first part of that is to reduce. And so the state is really calling on food waste reduction to be the first tier of this whole program. Mm-hmm. So when we look at it, we can really evaluate and be more diligent really with our purchasing and our consumption. But the second piece is reuse, which means that it can go to families and people in need and address the food insecurity issues we're facing in California. And the third piece of it is the last tier, which is be recycle. So recycle your organics is the last resort of what we're trying to achieve here.
So what does the typical California household need to do to comply with the law? What changed for them on the 1st of January?
Well, the average household would really, in my recommendation, would first need to consider reducing their food waste by again really being more diligent. But if it's absolutely, if items are really truly you're not able to consume them, like apple cores or vegetable peelings that we will never eat, they need to be discarded in an organics bin. Most communities have a green bin already in place that accepts yard trimmings. Now you need to just place any of your undesirable food scraps or into that bin.
So another feature of this that's a big step forward, in my opinion, is that multifamily housing, condos and apartment buildings are required to provide this service to their residents. And in many cases, landlords have not done that in the past with either recycling or composting. Have California landlords been resisting that change, or are they starting to participate in the green movement themselves and support this?
California landlords have resisted quite a bit, or they're hesitant to place a compost bin in one of their buildings because there's an ick factor related to composting. Yeah. But I like to point out that material is already being generated, and so it would be placed normally in a landfill bin. Now it's just going in a different bin. And so when we hear things like, oh, it's stinky or it attracts rodents or things, that material is already in your landfill bin. You're just putting it into you're separating it out and putting it very specifically into an organics bin. And there are some tips that I always share with people relating to proper composting, which I've heard from apartments that only have collection maybe once a week. Residents might put their stinky materials like fish bones or something in their freezer and then take it out when it's collection day. And if my recommendation, if that's the case, if your landlord is hesitant, be that advocate, be vocal, and actually, because it is a law, you can actually connect with your local waste hauler and have them come out and educate them, put the bin in, and really there's going to be enforcement on that law for non-compliance if landlords still choose to not participate.
So let's say I'm an apartment resident in California. There's no composting bin now. You're saying I should call my local waste hauler to call that out, or should I call my local solid waste management authority to say, hey, my landlord's not complying?
Really, it's the waste hauler's responsibility to ensure that there is a bin in place. And a lot of the staff for many of the waste companies have been in contact or will be in contact with that property manager, again, because it's a law.
So tell us about the difference between composting, home composting, and industrial composting. This is something we've covered a lot on Earth911, both the show and in articles. But a lot of people don't understand that the label compostable actually could mean several different things. What can be composted at home, and what do you have to send for industrial composting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a very common one relating in particular to our compostable food service ware. So backyard composting. Backyard composting is a really great way for organic materials to decompose and turn into a soil amendment, period. But a lot of people don't have the space or the time to actually manage those piles and have a good balance of what a compost pile needs, like your browns and your greens. Browns being your leaves, your twigs, and your food scraps being the greens and grass clippings. But really the major difference with a backyard composting system and a commercial compost operation is two things. One is that the commercial compost facility is very meticulously managed, and it particularly when it does two things. They grind the material, so it desizes it, so it jumpstarts that decomposition process, and they control temperatures. So we are trying to achieve at a commercial compost facility at least 131 degrees Fahrenheit and remain that way for several days. And that's because we are trying to kill off the undesirable bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella, and also that it really accelerates the decomposition time frame. So unlike in a home composting pile, you just really don't have, you can't generate heat that easily, nor do you have a grinder typically at your home. So there are major differences. And for our products at World Centric, we do design them with the end of life in mind. And that end of life is best suited for a commercial compost facility where they can control the elements.
So and this is, I think, it's a relevant point. If you're in California and you want to compost your food at home, that's perfectly reasonable. You're not violating the law by doing so. You don't have to send this for commercial composting. So you can do your own food scraps and so forth. And by the way, my compost pile is an experiment, including World Centric materials, to see whether or not I can compost them at home. And it's
I can hear the results.
Well, yeah, it's kind of gross to dig through looking for the results, but it's worth the time. I do find that I don't think I'm getting quite the temperature levels that are necessary to break down a lot of things. And I have actually considered buying a grinder.
Interesting. Well, it really will help jumpstart your pile, and you have to have proper moisture as well. So don't forget about the water.
Well, and I use a vermiculture approach, so I'm also depending on the worms for some assistance. So are World Centric products really compostable at home? Which ones are, if so?
Our products are designed and best suited for a commercial compost facility, and they can disintegrate in 2 to 3 months in the compost facility. We do have a certification on the compostable bags in the European standard to compost at home. And the certification body says it will decompose in 1 year. So it does take more time, but that it's mainly due to the bags being thin and flimsy. And so it's much easier for them to actually disintegrate.
So just thinking in terms of you have two different categories of product. There's the fiber-based service material, and then there's the tableware, the plastic or bioplastic based tableware. Are these fiber cups and so forth potentially compostable at home, or do they also need to go to an industrial facility?
All of our products are certified for commercial composting. And when you claim compostability, that means that your product undergoes testing at a third-party accredited lab. And these tests are put forth by the American Standards for Testing and Methods. And there's a third-party verification that we do these tests, and that logo and what to look for most consumers is this BPI logo. BPI stands for the Biodegradable Products Institute, and it is the certification body that many should look for, because anyone can write compostable, but unless it's actually verified and by this third party and then has a certification, then we know that it can truly break down in a certain time frame.
So, for instance, using the BPI label as a guide, how can a consumer find that label? Is it on the product packaging that they might purchase? And then the real question, I think, is how can they get the restaurants they frequent to use this kind of material? What should they tell them the restaurant to go out and look for in terms of a compostable alternative to what they're currently using?
Yeah, so the BPI logo, the actual mark is on any products that are certified. So yes, you can look for the logo on the product itself. You can also look on the BPI website, bpiworld.org, and you can find products that are certified. So that verifies it's gone through the testing and that it's safe for commercial composting. And lastly, your question about how to get restaurants on board. We've seen a huge increase in awareness around compostable packaging, a lot to do with SB 1383, simply because compostable packaging is a solution to containers. If they still have food scraps remaining on them, you can place all of that in the compost bin. So unlike if food scraps remain on a recyclable item, that will contaminate that waste stream. And it's really unfortunate because we want to have clean commodities in a recycling stream. But in a compost facility, you can see that fiber product, for example, that has food scraps on it, that's really good for the compost pile. The fiber materials will provide that carbon, and then the food scraps will provide that nitrogen. And we want to see both of those things in the compost piles. So it's actually really beneficial for the compost system.
So let's talk about a few world-centric compostable alternatives, because you make an interesting range of products. And the one I want to start with is pizza packaging. I know that regular or traditional cardboard boxes are considered not recyclable because they're grease or cheese contaminated, but there's a lot of research that shows that's not the case. You use a different fiber-based material that breaks down faster. Can a very dirty, as you just said, pizza box go into the compost bin?
Yeah, if a commercial composter does accept, not every commercial composter accepts compostable packaging.
Okay.
A lot of commercial composters do not accept bioplastics, and that's because of the National Organic Program. They prohibit anything that's synthetic, which they classify the bioplastics as synthetic. But the fiber materials are generally accepted. They don't violate any of the regulations from the National Organic Program, and they actually contribute positively. So having a pizza package that is made, so World Centric makes a pizza package that's made, it's derived from agricultural byproduct. In particular, we use the pulpy residue that's left over after sugar is extracted from the sugar cane. So this material is called bagasse. And it's really a wonderful substitute to traditional petroleum plastic food service ware. It's sturdy, and again, it is completely renewable plant source. So it's easily contributes. It contributes to the composting.
So I want to ask, based on what you just said about some composters not accepting bioplastics, is the cutlery, straws, and plastic cup products that you make, are they compostable at this point, or what would one do with those?
They are compostable because they are plant-based.
Right.
There's just regulation around there's prohibiting factors relating to acceptance from the composters because of the National Organics Program. We are, as an industry, my feeling is that we're phasing out more of the bioplastics and becoming more fiber centric.
Okay, interesting.
Play, but it is a lot of the regulations in California are calling for more, and there's foodware ordinances in certain communities that are specifically calling out fiber containers, plates, cups, even utensils potentially that are coming out soon. That's the industry as a whole is really making a more of a push for fiber.
So do you see, for instance, moving towards cutlery made from bamboo, or do you actually think that we would have cutlery made from fiber? I'm trying to imagine what that would perform like.
Yes, it would be from a combination, potentially some bamboo or bagasse, the sugar cane I mentioned, or wheat straw. Yes, it could be a combo. And yeah, as far as functionality goes, it is pretty sturdy. I have actually one I'm holding in my hand as we speak, and it's very pointy. I've used it with the salad. It holds up. So time will tell.
So the last one I wanted to ask about is you make a line of kitchen and yard waste bags that are biodegradable, that are compostable. How long do those take to break down? And are they also potentially going to be restricted in some locations because of the bioplastic issue?
Yes, they are currently restricted in some areas because of the bioplastic issue. And so in that instance, those communities encourage maybe paper liners or just no liners and just washing out your bin as you go on. But the first part of your question was just about how long they'll break down.
Yeah, how do they perform in the compost pile?
Sure. Oh, we often don't ever see them. I come from a commercial compost background, and it's very, very rare that you would ever see one of the compostable bags make it through the whole process because, again, it's flimsy, it's thin, and if it has those food scraps in it, it starts to break down pretty much right away. But if there is any residual, the composters at the end, before they sell the product, will screen out any material, and that usually is fed right back into the compost system. So it's often that we don't even see any of the residuals from the compostable plastic bag.
Okay, so generally, those are really designed to put your waste in for sending to the landfill. They'll break down faster in the landfill. It's not something you would necessarily think, I'm going to put my compostables in a bag. It's not necessarily necessary.
It's not necessary, but it does help a lot of communities with participation.
Oh, really? Because of the ick factor?
Because of the ick factor, exactly. Okay. A lot of people cannot wrap their brains around having no liner on any of their waste streams. And so we find that communities are getting more participants in composting when they allow the liners.
It's interesting because I can remember when garbage bags were new, and and it's not like we haven't done this before. It's just that we need to think about, maybe it's not necessarily even steps backward. It's just rethinking the way that we have imagined convenience for the past 40 or 50 years. So let me ask this, and we talked a little about restaurants and other institutional settings earlier. Are you seeing schools and corporate cafeterias, as well as restaurants, starting to really adopt a compostable alternative to the food serviceware that they use?
We've seen a huge increase this last 2 years, mainly because of the rollout of 1383 and more interest around compostable materials because of the food scraps being incorporated into composting. We've seen a lot more interest in replacing single-use plastics with sustainable, or better yet, regenerative alternatives. And this is mainly due to the bans of the ordinances on items like expanded polystyrene, which is known as styrofoam, that are really near impossible to recycle. And also, since the launch of SB 1383, we're seeing more interest in compostable options since food scraps can remain on the containers and not contaminate the waste stream. So my advice is to be vocal, use education outreach, read up on the county ordinances and raise awareness about it, and finally use social media to shout it.
Well, the suggestion box at work is also a great conduit for telling your employer that you want to see a change in the environment around you. And so it's great that we can encourage everybody to start thinking about adopting compostable materials just generally. What do you see on the horizon in terms of the evolution of sustainability, and particularly around managing food waste in California? You talked about the goals that the law has. What other conversations are going on right now about where the state wants to take its relationship to all these materials?
Well, the state is committed to the proper disposal of organics. So composting is not the only solution, because you can also process organic waste in a digester, which can then produce energy or clean gas. And so there are more options available for processing organic materials, which is only better for reducing methane emissions. They're the very aggressive goals. I mean, I feel like, when Jerry Brown signed this, he said if we tackle all these short-lived climate pollutants like methane, then we can focus on decarbonizing. So I feel like the conversation is very focused right now on mitigating the disasters we've seen, and also so much focus on healthy soils. And I know that you've had guests in the past talk about carbon sequestration and in relation to improving soil health and how it has this wonderful potential to capture carbon dioxide and lock it in the soils for years. So I was personally involved with grants related to healthy soils, working directly with the agricultural community as they are looking for alternatives to synthetic fertilizers, and really focused on this improvement for nutrient dense foods and organic foods and local and seasonal and all these trends that are happening. It's really such a great thing to witness as it evolves, because it's such an easy thing we can do just as residents. Like, if we just divert our food scraps away from landfill, we can process them and recover these resources. So watching this shift into waste management to resource recovery is so wonderful. And I never use the word waste when I speak about organic materials, because it implies that it has no value, when in fact organic material has high value and can have a wonderful place in our circular economy.
Well, it's really encouraging to hear you describe it that way, because we share that belief that there is no such thing as waste. Unfortunately, our language is very much oriented around usage rather than preservation, and so I do hope that the decisions that California is making and that other states like mine, Washington, will start to push us in this direction. Erin, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today. How can everybody learn more about World Centric and particularly find their products? Is it just at worldcentric.com, or are you also on Amazon and Walmart and other places?
Yes, worldcentric.com has a store locator, so people can find the closest location to them. But we also are in Whole Foods, and yes, we are on Amazon. We also have a presence at Sprouts. So individuals can look for compostable options in those retail outlets. And we on worldcentric.com, we also write a blog called Earth Matters. And most recently, I wrote one about food waste and more tips and tricks on how you can reduce it, just creative ways to improve and be more diligent with your consumption habits, purchasing habits, and really the best things to compost.
Great. Well, we'll include a pointer to that article in the article that goes with this podcast. Erin, thanks very much for spending some time with us.
Thanks so much, Mitch.
We've been talking with Erin Levine. She's Resource Recovery Manager at World Centric. They're a manufacturer of 100% compostable tableware and food packaging. Folks, as you just heard, there are changes in the things that we can do to recycle and compost the stuff that we use. There is no such thing as waste. There is only future value. And the value here is reduced methane emissions from landfills if you compost, the creation of new and useful soil, and in other contexts, we could turn some of this food into fuel or energy. There's a lot we can do as we continue to evolve a new relationship with all the stuff that we used to think of as waste. And so I encourage you to take a few minutes to think about whether or not you can compost your food and how you would do it. If you don't live in a state like California that has a robust compost law, ask your city council, your county council, your solid waste management authority about composting and what they're going to do to help you turn what you currently use back into future useful stuff. This is Earth911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm your host, Mitch Ratcliffe, and we're going to be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, I hope you'll take a few minutes to share this podcast and many of the others. We've done more than 270 now that are full of ideas that we can use to change our world. More ideas leads to less waste. Let's do it. We're going to be back. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.